All right. Thank you and everyone for coming to the Internet of Value Foundation New York, episode 157. For all those who listen to this information in the future, hopefully the very, very distant future in the way that we perceive existence. Hope you guys find the conversations as valuable as I know I do every single day. The diverse amount of mindsets, the gravitational pull that you all seem to have in this space, information wise. Yeah. Welcome, Shellfish and Dazzling. Feel free to come up, guys. I'm going to go grab some topics that we're going to speak about today. Some information on the topics, I should say, and yeah, have a conversation talking about quantum storage and in the thought of memory and how the utilization of this resource in quantum computers is very narrow and could be a great potential use case in the future for us to be able to, maximize quantum supremacy.
Good morning. How we doing?
Hello. I am doing well. Just grabbing content. Sorry about that. Give me one sec. All right, I got got all of the stuff that I wanted to post on top for this space. One of the posts in the middle there is talking about photonics, so not necessarily quantum computing, but talking about the understanding of being able to have the photonic array of light spectrum in the form of electricity as we use it, and in optical means of understanding it inside of the way microchips work and technology in general. But yeah, what about yourself, Des?
Nah, good man. Just kind of getting my day started. I got up nice and early. I got a notification that Bitcoin was pumping, so that's always exciting. Hopefully, you could take the rest of the market with it. And yeah, so I'll head off to work shortly, and yeah, excited for another episode, of course. Um, it was funny because I commented on Bet's Halloween space before, and I said, "Oh, my favorite space." And then after I sent it, I was like, "Oh no," because there's like Death Ranger space, and then there's Queen spaces as well. Shell hosts them sometimes. So I wasn't targeting anyone in particular. I love everyone's spaces, but no, this is always my favorite, man, for sure.
I don't think there's anything wrong with you having that space as your favorite space, and it's okay. Don't worry. It doesn't hurt my feelings. We all have
Yeah.
and one of the things that I say in these spaces, I've said many times, these are audio files that I think are historical context. The conversations are great, but I look at this as a means of trying to at least have a sustenance amount of information on at least a platform that I believe that will hopefully sustain the storage of these audio files for, you know, maybe a millennia into the future. And so, try to have as much retention to the times from a technological standpoint, a sociological standpoint, and in it doing so, including the theology of the networking phase of the era that our species is in, which we are, as I like to call it, to the accumulation. It's the internet of value. But yeah, with all of that being said, it'd probably be a quick little space today because it's not something that's a unless of course there's other people who want to talk about it and have questions about it. It's not something that's maybe a very in over encompassing subject. It's very straight to the point, right? Quantum memory. What you think about memory and storage as we think about it on a computer today, being in the form of bits, right? You have a certain amount of resources in every single computer in the form of a device, which is utilized to store that information in the form of bits. Well, when we have quantum computers, the array of depending on, of course, the way that the computer is, but typically I'm talking about superconducting computers today, IBM being a great example of this, and a few other PCs out there. Doing the same type of methodology fundamentally to try and acculate the quantum mechanical information through these changes of state, which is being beamed through this, essentially this beam of light, if you would like to think of it, inside of the quantum computer, the microchip that is the quantum computer, and or microchips, which you start to look at these much larger quantum systems today, where there's an array of this beaming of light, this energy transfer, and then sensors and a ton of equipment that is then put around all that to try and cool everything down to the, you know, the nominal factor that it needs to be for it to be able to have the ability, for us to have the ability to quantify these changes of state that are occurring inside of the computer. And so qubits, really interesting, because a bit being a one or a zero, or an on or an off, and essentially thinking about how switches operate. A qubit, and sorry, I see your hand, so we'll go to you right after this. A qubit being in an operational state because it's a probabilistic state of change, either existing as a one, zero, or both at the same time, um, brings into question how to store the factors of those changes. And so, Shellfish, please go ahead, jump in.
You can actually finish this part. It's actually probably after you're done with this AI section.
Oh, well, I already broke momentum.
Oh my God, I'm sorry. I took my hand down. I didn't mean to.
Well, you took it down and you put it back up, and then you took it down and put it back up, and I was like, oh, it's urgent.
No, it was me doing the hokey pokey.
Or you were doing the hokey pokey. Go ahead, though.
Okay. So I was actually in this discussion with Ben, which I don't know if he's not on speaker yet.
Yeah,
I
he's
am
Oh,
here.
perfect.
speaker, yeah.
Okay. Because Elon had posted in regards to the Neuralink, a 6-second procedure in the near future when robotics kind of perfect it, and it only being about $5,000 to do the Neuralink. And I was trying to find the information on the neural lace and other options, so you wouldn't have to go through the cranium. And I remember us talking about it in your spaces, so I didn't know if you were able to expand on that.
What was exactly the question? Expand on the Neuralink?
Expand on Neuralink or other options that may be presenting themselves in the near future. So that way, if people are fearful of doing a cranial surgery, that there would be possibly other ways to interact with the interfaces.
Yeah, for less serious things, like less, um, say you don't have a spinal cord injury, but you have horrible arthritis in certain parts of your body. You could essentially put, what would be thought of as um, as they do. Oh man, what's the name when they put the little thing on you? You probably use it in, massage therapy every once in a while to induce electrical current. Um, what are what
The
was it?
muscle stem, like the electrodes.
Electrodes, exactly. Thank you. So you would be able to, say, instill electrodes, in your wrist or your arm somewhere, and then have a non-invasive, possibly, it could even be possibly like a headset, I would see, like, or something like a visor, but something that's reading your pulse. It's able to acculate that, articulate what it needs to the from and to the electrodes. So it says, okay, the arthritis is acting up, you have inflammation right now, let's produce a small little electrical current, which will, negate that pain for yourself. And so your nerves don't react to it. And so you don't feel the pain anymore. So the, light application use, for those who may be older already, their knees are hurting them. I mean, there's a lot of different things. Or maybe, like you said, simplistic, slightly invasive surgery, something that could be attached to the back of the spinal cord, would be able to also control all of these impulses. Because if you look at the body from a Merkle tree standpoint, the way that we branch out our nervous system is essentially all connected to the medulla oblongata. I gotta look at my notes sometimes, but I think that's what it is, if I'm not mistaken. The medulla oblongata, like your central nerve, which runs down your spinal cord, and so essentially controlling that control station, or being located at that control station, you would be able to negate all of those, maybe slight difficulties or pains that you were feeling.
Thank you. That's why I didn't want to digress off of your thing. That's a completely different subject.
Yeah,
I'm so
it
sorry.
was a completely
I know.
subject.
I didn't
Everywhere.
mean to do like the hokey pokey. I apologize. I thought I only put it in once, maybe twice, but if I did it multiple times, I really am sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. Somehow I'll relate it back to quantum memory storage because, well, okay. So when we think about the study of anatomy, um, I think quantum computers actually can play a role in that because we can use linear algebra to calculate the molecular structures and actions and reactions of those structures in different environments. And so this is where something like quantum memory really is going to play a huge role, is because quantum computers, qubits, the operation between the one, the zero, or both existing at the same time, when it comes to memory, can either be computational, so it can be a reading of future states, probabilistically increasing over distance of what we would span, of course, an epoch of time, or it can be used as memory. And so when you're using a quantum computer, you're allocating some of those qubits, some of those resources off to try and store the memory of the system. You are doing just that. You are essentially taking away from the strength, the ability to have a computational progress forward for the system to be able to keep going. And so when you think about quantum supremacy, the powerful quantum computers that we think of are coming in the very near future, and they already have very powerful quantum computers, in my opinion. You already look at, I can go get something that was recently used with just a D-Wave quantum computer, something in tuned of 500 qubits is able to break RSA encryptions and even further AES encryptions. So I mean, the ability is already there. It's already been proven publicly that a lot of these encryptions can be broken. And some funny, business maybe we can look at where we see some stuff going on in the blockchain DLT space. Um, Back to the memory, right? Why is this essential? So if we want to have an accumulation of states, think about the 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 mathematical probabilities of multiple states being able to be put together. So scenarios, right, being put together. If you're thinking about all the molecules and the way that the actions of the molecules are going to act inside of your body, the nervous system, to having a microchip inside of it. And so we could then say, we have probabilistic proof beyond reasonable doubt that this particular type of material, maybe some sort of mixture between slightly silver based with silicon and copper and nickel and in certain places create what would be a less detrimental piece of technology to be associated with your organic self. I mean, all of these different things will come into play because anything that could essentially be calculated with linear algebra is something that a quantum computer, powerful enough, is going to be able to calculate, at least give us probabilistic concepts from that. And so the factor of having that memory, which could be possessed and used inside of the quantum system, is an essential, of course, to quantum supremacy and the future, production and ability to use quantum computers. Okay, now you can talk about whatever you want.
Memory storage is going to be a bit of an issue, in the coming years, because I would imagine, because as time goes on, we're generating more and more data every single day. Even just a text message or a click or anything like that is producing more data that is being stored, and you get everybody interacting online and sending so much information. I think we're probably going to have a lot of issues, memory issues in the future. So. Do we need to move to quantum memory storage sooner rather than later? Like, are we going to have an issue here with our systems scaling or dealing with all this new information that's being produced?
Well, so quantum memory scaling would pertain to just quantum computing, of course, and quantum computing being a much more narrow task. When you think about, like our data, our all the information that we're producing and being stored on these storage devices somewhere, we call it the cloud, right? But it's really storage facilities of someone else's ownership somewhere else in the world. I actually think that storage is going to become exponentially easier to not only acquire, but to produce like vast amounts of storage in extremely small devices. And the reason for that is that it's actually in part of the study of photonics, right? Quantum computing being part of the study of photonics. So, I mean, there is definitely relation there. Of course, there's a relation between the electricity that's being uh, shot through all of the different um, semiconductors inside of your microchip, right, to create the simulated operation that it is doing, and of course the beam of light that we think of as the energy transfer of state inside of a quantum computer. I mean, there's definitely relation in the operations of that are occurring in there in the form of power, electricity, I guess, right? But yeah, I think our ability to understand photonics and even the gravitational pull of the electrons and atoms inside of the microchips and flying through those semiconductors, right? The understanding of compiling and being able to symbolically represent, think of things like natural language models, right? Symbolically represent multiple steps of actions. So you could think of like the language, right, being able to be stored in something that could be symbolically represented in just the states of electrons that are being passed through semiconductors on a microchip. And so, boom, your ability to store becomes just so much vastly increased, and the size itself actually is able to then start getting smaller and smaller. So I think we're actually probably very close to that progression, and I think quantum computers will play in that progression because we'll learn about the abilities of these actions between states using quantum computers, and so we can then take that into further uh, um, further progression of saying we understand all of these materials act in this particular way, and so let's build a microchip that has this like further capability, and then let's prove that that's possible. I'm sorry, that was a lot. What are you thinking, Ben?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm thinking about power efficiency. I'm reading about how this is more efficient, but the applications that'll be used now that there would be, assuming in the future we have these things readily available. How much more energy are we going to need or how much less energy? How efficient are these modules, or is it not that important because other components of quantum computing take up significantly more power? Is this something we need to be thinking about? Because a lot of companies are, right? I'm noticing a lot of companies directly investing now in nuclear energy because it seems to be the fastest way to get a whole lot of energy cheap. right out the gate before we get fusion. So from an energy perspective, right? Because I think about that just for scalability, and that seems to be, I mean, certainly right now, everything that I know about quantum computing, it seems to be, energy efficiency seems to be the biggest hang up. So what do you like? Do you? I don't know. I mean, this is very theoretical, but where are we at with that? Is this going to be? Is this going to be so? Is this something that it could literally run on brain power, right? Just literally the electrical pulses that we have inside our bodies. Is that a possibility?
Well, I think we're going to be able to develop microchips that'll be able to do that. However, when you think of quantum computing, no, nowhere in the near future. And,
Still very large, right? These are. I'm imagining these things as like large facilities, even though they're the right. Okay.
yeah, and and even so, there are many different types of systems out there, and I love that you brought up energy because energy is a huge factor when it comes to adopting quantum computers. And you think of something like IBM, right, where superconducting, a ton of electrical current and usage that is needed to power a quantum computer of that scale and power. And of course, the more powerful a quantum computer could get, uh, there is an increase in power. Though there are competitors, and this is why it wasn't really talked about in the quantum space until really 2024, I would say, and towards more the end of the year, about modular systems, because of the different types of techniques that have been developed over the last 2 decades or so. There are things like neutral atom um, systems out there, as well as calcium atoms. There are particular types of spin detection, um, quantum systems where they're essentially using much less energy to read the same type of computation that a quantum computer would be able to do, but the electrical usage is much lower. However, comparably to how powerful those systems are, they don't compare to things like superconducting quantum computers today. Though, the benefit really comes down to it when we think about something like medical usage, right? Studying the different types of effects that chemicals could have on molecules, and this might really, for like an independent lab, or your universities, and possibly if hospitals are dedicating resources to do these studies, that could make a lot of sense, where we could get rid of these vast amount of server rooms that we have. We're using a ton of electrical power to power all of these, and we could get a couple simple like D-Wave quantum PCs right in here. And so yeah, maybe that becomes more relevant for those types of use cases. And even those who like big players like your IBMs of the world. I think we start to see them adopt modular systems where they have their superconducting system, and they also have all these different types of other plug-in systems that you can utilize. And today, I mean, if you know how to utilize Python or Java or C++, I mean, you could really jump right on to IBM's Qiskit, and just start kind of interacting with quantum computers.
I don't know if I would take you up on that. I would probably cause some sort of national security incident if I did something like that. But I do like the availability of it. Yeah, it's interesting. It just seems to me to be the big bottleneck, like physical size of these things. So it's probably a long way away from it being small enough that we can throw it up on a rocket and map the topography of a planet. You know,
Funny thing is the quantum microchips, or blah, blah, microchips, where the quantum states are being detected, right, with the sensors. They're actually very small. And if you ever look at a quantum computer, the large thing that looks like it's like a giant chandelier, essentially, from that you would hang on a ceiling, all the way at the bottom, there's like a little box typically, and that's actually where the quantum computation is going on. All of the other things are copper wires, sensors, and um, materials used to cool everything down. And that's actually why quantum computers today are just so large. and on top of that need even larger fridges, cooling fridges, which I might say, start at $1 million and typically up. So right off the bat, that's like a large expense. You have to kind of invest if you want something like a quantum computer today. Um, but I think I do think that that's going to quickly change. I mean, do you think about back when we had the beginning of computers in the form of bits? They took up entire server rooms, and I mean, in a decade or 2 decades time, we now have them existing in our phones. So I think we'll see something pretty similar happen with that, if not exponentially faster.
That's exciting. That'd be fun. I mean, I guess. Scary too. So I pretty much just need the guts out of my dishwasher and this and a little bit of Python plug in there, and I can just build my own supercomputer. All right, well, I'm gonna start working on that now. Very interesting. Hey, what do you think the first thing is? What's the first industry that's going to be revolutionized? I mean, really revolutionized, in your opinion, with this new quantum memory systems that theoretically are going to come to market maybe whenever. I don't know how long.
So I'm going to say the medical industry, and the reason for that is the technical term would be the material science, right? Obviously, material science being more of like a field of study than it is
Right. Mm-hmm.
An industry. But those who have the ability to utilize the quantum computers for material science for their own operations, I think are going to by far exceed anything that we could even conceive of today from just a operational standpoint of the way that we think of technologies.
I would definitely agree with that. I think the easy things like data processing is probably like an easy one, but I think medical, pharmaceutical, discovery, right? R&D. Go ahead, Jill.
Not to mention, by having it adopted by the medical industry and having groundbreaking healing and just across the board helping humanity in that aspect will help with adoption and probably bring a lot more VC funding and just money in general going into it to help accelerate everything else.
That makes total sense. When you've got this new technology, you always want to shoot for the most lucrative, or like you said, the easiest way to get that sweet VC money. Ripple, if you're listening, these guys know what they're talking about.
You got no chance, Ben. You got no chance.
I'm just gonna fake it till I make it, friend. What do you think I'm doing here?
Yeah, well, if you don't try, you'll never know. Yeah, Death, you mentioned programming languages for quantum, and I was having a quick dig then, and surprisingly, as you mentioned, Python is one of the top ones here. But there's also Q Sharp, which was I guess developed by Microsoft, which I thought was quite clever as well. But there's a few others here. I might post this article in the Purple Pill for everyone that wants to have a look. So.
Yeah, they have like 6 different languages. Rust, I think, also being one of them. I think it's like 6 or 7 different languages. What that really means is they've built an array of libraries where you have all these different types of possibilities that you could essentially just tap into. And if you want to write your own code, you at least know what you'll be able to utilize from their end of their libraries that they've already written. So you know what actions are going to be able to be performed. And I think it's really cool. I mean, of course, you have to pay for the service if you want to utilize IBM's quantum computers, but I think the possibilities, of course, depending on what you're utilizing it for, are pretty significant already.
It's interesting you mentioned Rust because, as they're working with Rust to solve, some of the memory issues that some other programming languages are presenting or have presented for quite a long time. So Rust is definitely one to look out for. I'm probably gonna have to write something in Rust so I can learn it.
Don't stab my C++, all right, Dazzling? Pluses and minuses. Way more comprehensive.
Look, it's going to take a long time till we can solve those issues. But yeah, it's C++ ain't going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, listen. Compiling and compressing. I say it's humanity's greatest friend when it comes to storage. Compiling and compressing, and I think, like I mentioned before, the understanding of like natural language models in the forms of symbolic representations. I think we can take this like steps further, and teach microchips, right, to be able to store vast amounts of information using these kind of symbolic representations in the forms of photonics, right? The photons that are literally being transferred through the semiconductors inside the chip. So I think, yeah, I mean, there's no reason to get rid of C++, all right? But they both have their benefits. There are things that you can do with Rust that you definitely can't do with C++. And if you did, it would just take you way more time trying to kind of put that all together, which, of course, time is money and sustenance and storage.
100%. It's all about finding the right tool for the job.
Exactly. That was well put, yeah. Yeah. And so there was also something else that I wanted to bring up. It was strange because I read the article the other day and I can't remember where I read it. Like if it was at work, or I thought it was on X, and I thought I had saved it in my bookmarks, and so it's gone, which means it was either deleted or it was taken down. But it was this really interesting article where it talked about a new methodology to help with the decoherence that occurs inside of a quantum computer in general. And so something that, quantum memory is really utilized today for, is being able to store these states in a particular factor and means of way that we can analyze and say that, this representation of what happened here is then able to be proved somewhere else, to prove that factor of it being a proof that we can utilize without reasonable doubt in the form of like mathematics, right? That we performed multiple tests to say if this was true or not. And so, quantum decoherence being something that or just originates because of all the different types of materials and systems that are being used inside of a quantum computer, creating magnetic fields which create decoherence. You can think of it as noise. Makes it very hard to kind of accurately describe this state of changes from that state of changes. And so the new methodology was utilized using ferroelectric materials inside of the quantum computing processing chip itself in a different. See, the way it was described, and this is why I'm thinking maybe that's why it was taken down, because it either could have been something that wasn't meant to be released yet, or just something that was outright wrong. But the way that they described it was, today a lot of magnetic systems are essentially outside of where the processing would be done. And so this is used to propel, of course, the beam in a fashion of high speed, but also creates a whole bunch of decoherence. What I actually read was they could actually, and they started doing this using these ferroelectric materials inside of the quantum processing unit itself, to essentially get rid of all of the need for all of these outer magnets, decreasing the decoherence magnitudes right off the bat. And this was for quantum superconducting quantum systems. So I got to keep digging myself, but if this is true, and of course this was a research study that I read that was being done at a university, so they were going to do a second installment of tests to be able to prove, you know without a reasonable doubt there's no faultiness in their tests. And they did release a research paper, and so hopefully there's like other labs out there that are probably going to try and do the same kind of tests with the same materials that they used, because it was material specific, right? The types of materials they used to create the ferroelectric um, environment was a specific combination of, I think it was like coppers and I'm not gonna butcher it because I know it was something specific. But yeah, but if that be the case, we could see exponential public growth in just how powerful quantum computers could be. I think that by itself, because decoherence being a huge thing with quantum computers, your big players like your Googles and your IBMs of the world, thinking about the medical field themselves and material science, the amount of changes from a standpoint that they'll be able to produce. And of course, there's the thought of somewhat how would they profit off of it? And so I think that has to be taken into account for how fast we would see things grow. But yeah, I think that's possible to be an exponential growth as well. Of course, if this is true, I'm going to keep digging on that article though. Any other thoughts from anybody on the stage, or feel free, anybody in the audience, if you guys want to come up and ask any questions or join the conversation.
I have not seen or heard from Sierra in so long. I'm wondering if she would be able to jump in on the conversation. I always love her input.
That's because she's always rocking out in the Tesla spaces late at night for
Dude,
you guys.
she's such a wicked smart girl. Like lady, whatever.
Totally.
Yeah, I do as well.
Oh,
I believe me, I sent her many invites already, and I'm sure she's busy working right now. So glad she's here.
she
Though.
did a she did a
Sierra fan club. I'm sorry, Sierra. We're
yeah,
all fangirling over you.
she totally did this awesome prompts, this image prompts of her at a TED talk, and even generated it into a video of her walking around on a TED talk stage, giving a presentation with her voice. I mean, it's going to be so hard to decipher what's real content. One day it's getting very, very good. Yeah, it's just crazy.
I'm gonna tell people I knew that I knew someone on a TED talk and show them that photo. It's impressive. Sierra, you should be on a TED talk actually. Anyway, so it's um,
It's the natural progression of her path.
no, it was a different word I was thinking of actually.
Well, didn't she start out training at XAI and now she's like superstar Tesla chick? I'm like loving watching her timeline just like bloom.
You're getting baited so hard, Sarah, to come up and have a chat.
I know. Is it working? Is it working? I don't even know. I'm trying so hard right now.
She said in the comments she's going to come up in a few minutes to you.
It's funny because it makes me think about all the all the amazing developments that are going on, that are coming out from Elon, and you don't ever really hear anything about him working with quantum stuff. Is that a true statement, or is he actively working with quantum technology? Does anyone know?
I mean, maybe for material science, but like owning quantum computers, I don't know if there would be any need for them to own quantum computers. And oh yeah, you're right. She did say she'll come up in a couple minutes. I'm probably going to close up in a couple minutes, but I will hold it open until Sierra comes up. Yeah, back to the thought though. I mean, like I said, for material science, it makes sense if you were thinking about batteries, right? What materials could we use to make the most efficient, cost-saving batteries for ourselves that are also lightweight? I think that's a thought, but yeah, I don't think there's any companies that he's really participated in heavily that are developing quantum computers.
That's interesting because wouldn't he want to solve that kind of battery issue? Um, I mean, make them more efficient, cost effective. That'd be a gold mine for his, or for Tesla.
It definitely, but the risk comes down to it is if I say, okay, I'm going to invest $15 billion into building the quantum computing and to do this, I'm in at $15 billion, and I don't know if it's going to be like a successful venture where, hey, I can contact IBM and I'm like, hey, you have this quantum computer, I want to do this particular set of projects, and they say, okay, this is our set fee, and we get the setup. And so I think that'll personally probably be how most quantum computation is done for the definitely near future, is it will be most likely cloud-based, and large entities and players who have these systems in place will essentially rent out that computational service. To be fair, the internet kind of works the exact same way today. Not necessarily that I like it that way, but it just happens to be that that's the way that our society has set it up. Textile, though, welcome up, man. Always glad to have you in the space.
Bro, it's been a long time. Hey, I just had a question for you. It's kind of like, it's not really falling in the quantum realm, but I was just curious if you saw the video of the red light laser where you look into it and you see the matrix, the programming of the matrix and whatnot. Have you seen that? Is that just conspiracy? Does anybody know for that to be true? I haven't tried it, so I was
The
curious. I know you're
documentary.
okay. Okay.
I just saw that this morning.
It's crazy, right? They look into it and they can like see quantum shit, I guess. I don't know.
Okay, so this is very, very similar to, dang, what's that? What's the thing that you look into and you basically, oh man, it's a interdimensional device almost in sense. You can look into a crystal in it. What's the word? It starts with a P. Phew. Does anybody know?
Bro, I'd be lying if I even tried to say it.
The video that you're referencing, though, they smoked at least a little bit of DMT in order to experience the matrix in the red light that you're talking about, though.
Oh
So
Oh,
just
shit.
to,
I
on,
missed
I don't
that
know if
they're
you
on
part.
saw that part.
drugs? Oh, well, that doesn't count.
I thought there
No,
was
Yeah, does it
multiple
count
people
if
who
they're
saw it.
using DMT though?
Oh, okay. My bad. I missed that part. Fuck, I'm not a druggie. My bad.
you know, the thing is though is, so what are we viewing, right? And this is an interesting question, right? Like if you were to ask about the realism around you, what are you viewing? Is it reality to you? If you say yes, then your reality to you is essentially a set of photons, right? A particular frequency of an array of light, which is being picked up by the sensors, in which we call your visual cortex, after it bounced around inside of your eye hole for a little bit there, and then is read by your brain and interpreted as some sort of form of right, figment of physical stature. So I mean, it's interesting to think about, like, yeah, when you're looking at a laser directly into your eye. I mean, there are some, you're seeing a different frequency, so it's just some different form of array of a light. I wouldn't necessarily think that you would be seeing the matrix, but I don't know what the significance would be either. If you visually see something as
Well,
different, does it like, is there any other articulation that could be made in our physical reality, at least as far as I can tell now?
my understanding is that they can see like a code like they do in the Matrix. My guitaring? Sorry.
Yeah, it was a common hallucination on DMT looking into the red light, but I don't know if they were prompted to look at that and see that, or if they were said, "Hey, look in the light and then tell me what you see." Because if you said, "Hey, do you see the matrix?" then you're suggesting, like the power of suggestion alone might bring them to that state if they're already in that state of mind,
Well, it
right?
would be like the
At least
whole, it's
that's
a
what I would
figment
imagine.
of your imagination. So if someone plans or prompts that, I could see like multiple people having the same experience.
I was
That
about
makes
to
sense.
ask, did every one of those people know about the Matrix of the movie? Because, like, what if that was what obviously was like a premeditated thought going into the situation? It's an interesting thought. I mean, if you close your eyes, can you see it? It's kind of maybe the same thought. Back to the conversation though, Sierra. You came up to talk about quantum computers and storage. Oh, maybe. But either way, the stage is yours.
Well, mostly I was listening in, but I came up by popular request. uh, you are the authority on all things quantum. I'm here to learn from you, Death.
Oh well, I think that was too much power. Thank you, Sierra. Though. Yeah, I mean, today, we really just talked about, and it was really sparked to me by Quantum magazine, magazine that I like to read. Of course, I guess Is a magazine when you read it on X? No, I think they should really just change that to Quanta X. Oh, right. But anyway.
When you said magazine, I thought you were going and actually buying like a paper magazine from like a news agency. I was like, people still do that? Like,
Yeah, right?
I was picturing it coming to your mailbox, like Death gets excited every Tuesday because Quantum Magazine is arriving.
Okay, I do get magazines. However,
Sure you do. Like Ranger Rick, TV Guide,
yeah, it just happens to be that is their X name, Quantum Magazine.
People. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's great. Science is important, of course, and even though mainstream science and the sources that it comes from is not the best, but I think it gives insight and highlight to future possibilities that are gonna come. Of course, I like to think that there are little tidbits mentions by players in the game that kind of hint to like their direction of what they want to see. Anywho, yeah, so they had posted an article talking about a new breakthrough recently with algorithms. So, you know, particular algorithms that could be utilized for on quantum computers that would be able to increase the less um, hmm, decrease the need for as much tests, as much duplicity of a combination of reading of factors and states. So think about, how do we prove a state through a quantum computer was the accurate state? Well, we have to try and test that same state of changes multiple times, and then we can kind of say, well, we could prove that state of changes is accurate. This is exactly what we've measured, and this mathematical probability makes sense. um, the the ability to create an algorithm that essentially said, okay, we only need, with this particular algorithm, using it to mathematically test the chains of states, we can actually get away with just testing it twice, and in this test of testing these states twice, we can get an accurate reading, decreasing the amount of computation we need to dedicate to just prove these changes of state. So further the progression of being able to just further the computational ability to read different states and different changes, different combinations, whether they be something like, measuring molecular interactions, or even like photonic interactions inside of microchips. But yeah, that was what sparked my want to talk about quantum memory today, and that article that I read the other day, which I haven't been able to find since. I gotta find where I read that. It's really interesting. Yeah, the combinations, because they had percentages of materials that they've used. I know copper being one of them, and I think it was one of the largest materials that were used. Oh man, was it copper and then isotopes of copper that were used? It was just an interesting methodology that you don't necessarily usually get to read articles where they give a such an in-depth like view of their own perception of what was going on and being used. I gotta look at that up. Sorry, guys. But does anyone have any other questions or any thoughts about quantum computers, quantum storage, memory, even the thought of the symmetrical, like operations of uh, magnetization inside of microchips? Sierra, you want to take us out?
Oh man, no pressure. Sure. So, uh,
wait, before you do, I was going to say, it's not like you can say, oh, I'm driving, because, you've got full FSD now. So you can't use that as an excuse.
that's true. I don't drive. I'm driven. It's great. Although Bluetooth in the Tesla is not ideal, honestly. So I try not to be on spaces when I'm in the car. Um, I don't know. I tuned in late, so I can't really recap the space. Very interested in what that isotope was, that Death discussed. So hopefully he finds that article for next time. And I'm going to hand it over to Shelly.
That was smooth.
And I actually am pumping my gas right now. So pass it back to Tyler.
Oh, what's going on here, guys? All right, no. Yeah, I thank you for coming to the space, Sierra, and everyone who joined. You know, it was a quick space. And I've been trying to do this when they're information packed spaces. I really want to keep them like 45 minutes, 55 minutes, because going back to it, when I think about people trying to re-listen to this information, if they want to get something from it, it's so much easier to be like, I'm going to dedicate a drive to this space. And I know sometimes we listen to things and we'll shut them off, and we don't always go back to them. So I do hope everyone gets great information out of this and enjoys it, hopefully very far into our distant future. I love you guys. I hope everyone has a great rest of the night. I'm not sure if I will be here this Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but I'll definitely keep everyone posted and post something on the IOV X handle if I'm not going to be. But yeah, it was a great space, guys. It was a really great conversation, and I love you guys. Hope everyone has a great rest of the night.
Thanks, Steph. Have a good one. Bye, guys.